Welcome to the Fire Sprinkler Podcast with Chris and Logan. This episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast is brought to you by the new Tyco Concealed Window Sprinkler, a specific application sprinkler that is a cost-effective alternative to fire-rated glass. The sprinkler discharges an even coat of water when activated, which cools the window to help prevent shattering in a fire event. The flat plate design conceals the sprinkler above the ceiling, allowing for an uninterrupted design aesthetic. The sprinkler is designed to provide a 2-hour fire-resistant rating to protect non-rated glazing. It's UL and CUL listed as a specific application automatic window sprinkler. And compliant with the International Building Code, the fire-resistant rating evaluated in ICC ESR 2397. Visit tyco-fire.com for more information. Hey everyone, before we get started on this episode of the podcast, I wanted to invite you to an event coming up at Seneca College in Toronto, Ontario. The event's on March 12th. It's a 9th annual career fair and industry dinner. It's a great opportunity to meet some of the future industry superstars that Seneca's been pumping out lately, and hopefully snipe them up and add them to your design team before they get away. A lot of my guests on the podcast are Seneca grads. It's pretty rare nowadays to get a designer that didn't come from Seneca's sprinkler design program. It's a great event for the industry. Reach out to Scott Pugsley. He's the industry coordinator and a professor at Seneca College if you have any more questions. Bob Cordell is a global product manager of commercial and special application sprinklers and is on the podcast today to talk about the new concealed window sprinkler that is now available from Tyco and Johnson Controls. With architecture unfortunately taking the forefront over fire protection, they have created an aesthetically pleasing alternative to the industry standard window sprinkler. This episode is chock full of information. I hope you enjoy.
Like and subscribe.
Bob Cordell from Johnson Controls is on the podcast today. Bob, how's it going today?
Good, Chris. How are you doing?
It's still too early to tell, but so far so good. There's a lot of day left, and the kids aren't home from school yet. But as of right now, everything is pretty good. Bob, you came on today because Johnson Controls and Tyco have a new product coming out. Kind of an improvement on an existing product that you guys kind of had the only one available for years and years. A couple other people have started coming out with them now, but you guys are now improving on that and offering another option. Why don't you start by telling us about this new product?
Yeah, sure, Chris. And just want to say thanks for having me on today. I'm really happy to be talking about our new product that we're launching. So, like you said, it's an existing product that we have had on the market for a while in our specific application window sprinklers. And we're happy to announce that we're going to be launching our first concealed window sprinkler coming up this March 10th. It'll be available for sale. So, we've had our line of window sprinklers, our horizontal sidewall and our vertical sidewall exposed window sprinklers on the market for a long time now. I think around 95, 96 they were launched. And just due to us being present in the architectural community, listening to building owners and architects in terms of how they're using the existing window sprinkler, people were very happy with it. They love the performance and the value proposition it provides. But the one thing that they've asked for a long period of time now is if we could make it more aesthetically pleasing, if we could make a concealed version. So that's what we've done.
I'm sure that wasn't an easy task to come on. Essentially, the design of the window sprinkler has gone unchanged for essentially 25 years, going almost 25 years now. How long has the idea of the concealed window sprinkler kind of been floating around the Johnson Controls and Tyco R&D, warehouse?
Well, yeah, before my time, I think. We've had it in the back of our heads for quite some time because it's always been the number one requested feature after we introduce somebody to the window sprinkler. We're very present in the architectural community, and it's the first or second thing they ask. So we've known about it for the need for a while. We started taking ourselves seriously that we could do something about it about 2.5 years ago. Is when we really started in earnest trying to tackle this problem. And like you said, it's not, it wasn't an easy thing. When you think about a window sprinkler, you typically think how it has to be positioned directly in front of the window. Right. And in my mind, going back for a long period of time, I would think, well, if we're going to make a concealed one, we have to make something that drops down significantly far from the ceiling in order to get it positioned where it needs to be. But it turns out once we really started digging into it and experimenting here at our facility in Cranston, Rhode Island, where we can, spray on different types of surfaces and just really experiment with things. We discovered that we could probably do it without having to have the drop down feature drop all the way down, a foot or something like that. It drops down, the deflector drops how a typical concealed sprinkler would drop down, only a few inches. So, once we started digging into it a couple years ago, we were able to accomplish, some really nice design features that allowed us to do it.
The depth that your concealed sprinklers drops down is actually one of the big things that I like about yours. For a residential point of view, we use a lot of the Tyco residential sprinklers at my company, and I like how far the deflector drops down. I like the depth that we get on the concealed sprinklers with you guys. But anyways, that's getting off topic here. The window sprinklers, so listed and approved. How was the process for getting the sprinkler listed? Did you have to go through the same guidelines that you had to go through when you guys got the original window sprinkler listed, or have they recently dropped off? Because now I'm sure you're aware, you've been paying attention to social media as well as just keeping an eye on your competitors. Other manufacturers out there now have window sprinklers. Is this kind of flood to the market now based more on less stringent listing requirements, or was it simply the Tyco patent wore out?
So a couple things to unpack there. As far as the competitive situation, I've seen the same things that you mentioned with social media, and it's easy to see now when your competitors launch similar products. So I'm not sure. To say, I don't think that we've seen a huge influx of new products because something changed in the market or because it's gotten easier to get it listed or anything like that. The criteria for getting a window sprinkler to pass the applicable testing through UL for a specific application window sprinkler hasn't changed since we originally did it in 1995, 96, or I should say rather, one of our legacy companies, Central Sprinkler Company, which became part of Tyco, did in 95, 96. I think the competitive situation now is more speaking to the fact that architects and building owners really do see the value proposition in being able to gain a 2-hour fire rated equivalency by using a window sprinkler in lieu of a fire rated piece of glass or wall assembly. That's probably why we're seeing more entrants into the market, is just because there really is a need here. Tyco and before that Central established that this was a winning proposition for architects who would like to see lower costs, more options in terms of color and tint, and less weight compared to fire rated glass. Being able to use a window sprinkler in conjunction with non-rated glass as opposed to fire rated glass has a tremendous value, not just to the building owner dollar-wise, but to the architect who's trying to achieve a certain aesthetic. So I think those two things go hand in hand when you talk about the new products on the market, is that there's just a need for them. As far as the testing, to achieve a specific application window sprinkler listing through UL, there is a series of both mechanical and environmental tests that are really similar to what you would do for a regular sprinkler. Things like rough usage and heat resistance, vibration testing, rough use and abuse. Those are types of tests that examine, can a sprinkler withstand handling and is it sustainable over the long term? Right. And then there's tests for, actual fire resistance rating. So proving performance in compliance with the ASTM E119 test for fire rated assemblies, passing a hose stream test, and things of that nature are what it really takes to achieve that listing. And all of the competitors have had to go through those same tests.
So the same. It's the exact same listing for the essentially call it the exposed window sprinkler. You guys had to overcome the same challenges with the exposed as the concealed.
Yeah, it's the same for us. We have done a couple other things with the new product that go a little beyond what we had to do with the existing exposed window sprinklers, and that's more to do with the fact that it fits in a ceiling. Right. So prior to this, with a window sprinkler sitting right in front of the glass, there was a lot less variability in terms of where the sprinkler sits off of the glass and the amount of different test conditions that we needed to be exposed to in order to prove that it would operate effectively. When it's in the ceiling, our specification allows for the concealed window sprinklers to be installed anywhere from flush with the top of the glass to 4 inches above it, and anywhere from 6 inches off of the face of the glass to 12 inches off of the face of the glass. So we had to evaluate all the extremes of that installation criteria. So basically 0 inches above the top and as close to it as possible, in addition to 4 inches above the top of the glass and as far away from it as possible. We also had to examine as close to the glass as possible and as high up as possible. So only 6 inches off of the glass and 4 inches up. And that condition provides the, I'd say probably the most difficult spray pattern to achieve, because you're very close and above it. So you have to basically wet the entire surface of the glass while avoiding dry spots near the top. So there were a couple more positions that we had to evaluate because of the concealed, if you compare it to the exposed version.
So actually, I made a note here to ask about that, because looking through the tech sheet, the 2 inches plus minus 2 inches from the top of the glass is specified in there. And I was reading between the lines and got a 0 to 4 inches. But it was funny to see, 2 inches plus minus 2 inches from the top of the glass. Which
the only reason
but is it ideal that it's 2 inches above?
So if you look at the detail in our technical data sheet, and for those looking online, it's TFP 621 if you search our website. We showed it 2 inches plus or minus 2 because we wanted to show a standard 2-inch frame. That's the only reason we showed it in the detail as 2 inches plus or minus above. I wouldn't say that there's an ideal position. You can install it anywhere within flush to 4 inches above and 6 to 12 inches off. The only reason we're showing it as 2 above plus or minus 2 is just to show that you can install it with or without the frame exposed at the top of the glass.
Right. Okay, I see. Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of when it was plus minus 2 inches above the window frame is to accommodate the framed in window like that. You've also got some spacing as far as distance off the mullions and things like that. Obviously, review the data sheet before you start slapping these things in. But is there any differences in the listing spacing requirements from this compared to a regular window sprinkler?
No, actually, that's one of the things we wanted to do for people that were really familiar with the sprinklers, make it as close as possible to what they're currently using, and make everything from the hydraulic aspect of it and the spacing, minimum and maximum spacing, distance off the mullions. We wanted to just remain consistent with what we had done in the past.
Right.
So the minimum spacing is 6 feet, the maximum is 8. The reason we didn't go beyond 8 feet is pretty simple. There's not a lot of panes of glass, individual panes that are wider than 8 feet. You could end up in a situation where you have a butt jointed facade, yep. In which case you don't have vertical mullions, and you can you just still adhere to the 8 feet. But there's no difference between the minimum and maximum spacing or the hydraulic design criteria between the concealed and our existing window sprinklers.
Awesome. It's you guys mainly wanted to focus on the aesthetic aspect of the sprinklers to make it as essentially make it as pretty as possible, make it so people don't know that they're protected.
Yeah, that's the idea. I think that's the idea with all flat plate concealed sprinklers, right? Is to try to get them to blend into the ceiling design as best as possible. And we did, over the 20 years we've had this on the market, we answer a lot of questions from architects and building owners that were building soffits to try to hide the window sprinkler.
Right.
They're building something in front of it, and there was a lot of criteria that they would have to consider when building a pocket, right? Because you don't want to shield the sprinkler from operating.
That's right.
So that was a major concern. We were always trying to balance, the functional aspects of a window sprinkler and being able to provide this great value with the fact that architects are the ones that are specifying it, or specifying engineers. And these are people that also care about the design. So yeah, the biggest thing we were trying to do is just, enhance it by giving the available flat plate concealed version.
Right. And to be honest with you, it looks, looking at the pictures and looking at some of the, the tech sheets and stuff like that, it looks like a standard pendant sprinkler. Are you going to have anything to identify the difference if you're looking from putting my fitter's hat on now for a second, doing inspections? Is there going to be anything to kind of set it aside so that if a guy's doing an inspection and he sees these concealed window sprinklers, is there going to be any identifying marks on the plates to identify it as a window sprinkler, a specific listed window sprinkler, or is it going to be is it the same flat plate that's used for the pendants?
Yeah, so it's the same flat plate that's used for the pendant. When the plate is on, you would be unable to identify that it's a window sprinkler, and that's by design, right? We don't want people looking at the plate and focusing on it, right? We're trying to make it blend in. But prior to installation, while you're doing your hydro or something like that, you'd be able to pull the protective cap off, and you can very easily see that this is a window sprinkler. It does say specific application window sprinkler on it. Right. It looks unlike any other sprinkler you would typically find, right? Because it's got this really unique, like patent pending vertical sidewall design to it. If you were looking at it without the plate and without the protective cap on it, you would not be able to mistake it for anything other than a specific application window sprinkler.
Yeah,
so,
I would agree to that. Looking at the pictures, it is a different design. I haven't seen one. I haven't seen one in my hand yet. I haven't picked one up and felt one or looked at it. But looking at the designs and looking at like the spec sheet, it's a very different looking sprinkler. You wouldn't be able to, if you took the plate off and took a look at it, it would be hard to say, oh no, that's not a, that's a pendant sprinkler.
I put it in a couple contractors' hands, and the first thing out of their mouth is, wow. I don't think anybody's ever seen. Well, we've never seen it. To my knowledge, it's the first of its kind. Deployable or concealed vertical sidewall sprinkler. It hasn't existed yet, where you would deploy a deflector that looks like that from a concealed platform.
So now,
it's definitely
not to dig into the R&D side of things anymore, but is that something you guys are also looking to, based off of this? Is that what's going to be next coming out here? Is a concealed vertical sidewall, not just the window sprinkler?
I'm not sure. I'd have to dig more into what the true applications for vertical sidewalls are to see what other applications are out there besides window sprinklers. For window sprinklers, I think it's really the only way to do a concealed window sprinkler is to deploy a vertical sidewall deflector. Yeah. There may be some other applications out there. Chris, you may have given me a good idea there, now that we have the platform, like you said, once you develop the technology for something, it becomes easier to do very similar things. So it's something we'll continue to look at.
Yeah, something to look into. Just feel free to send me a couple bucks if you start selling those things. I'm noticing with talking to everybody, being involved in the podcast, and just having conversations. I have ideas in the industry, and I just I want to see things happen. I'm not a manufacturer, so I tell people, and it's happened more than once where I start to see things that I've talked about, and it may be like, oh, it's been in production for years, but people just don't tell me. Just little things like there was I can't remember who made it. It might have been Tyco, it might have been Victaulica, it might have been somebody else made the flex drops. And I said to one of my reps, I just said, you guys should throw a zip tie, like a big 12-inch zip tie in every flex drop that you sell, because everybody gets them anyways to keep them out of the way after installation. And then 6 months later, the next order comes in and every one of them's got a zip tie in. But it's a little things like that, thinking about the contractors and the installation and the installers that are putting them in, the fitters. Little things like that go a long way. And if I don't have to go out of my way to pick up a box or a bag of zip ties, it's a little thing in the industry that guys appreciate it. So, let me know if you guys go any farther with that. I'm going to edit that out of the podcast because now everybody's going to be calling it. No, I'm leaving it in. That way you heard it here first. We started talking about kind of the similarities between the sidewall sprinkler and the window sprinklers. Again, as a contractor, designer, fitter, I kind of do a little bit of everything in the industry. I have came across where people are utilizing standard spray sidewalls in place of window sprinklers. Obviously not approved by Tyco or any AHJ or anything like that, but what would the difference be if somebody wanted to just put a standard spray sidewall in the vertical position against a window? What are the differences in the spray pattern that would make that so terrible?
Yeah, there would be drastic, I think, unknown and unintended consequences of trying to do that.
Right.
First of all, I think we need to let people know that there's a big difference between sprinklers that are designed for standard applications per UL 199 and specific application sprinklers, right? The way it works is UL develops test standards to kind of come up with a composite way of evaluating sprinklers per the requirements in fire codes like NFPA 13. So when they develop something that says a sidewall sprinkler has to behave like this, they're really describing a compartment fire model for either, in this case, a commercial application where they're thinking about how high up a sidewall sprinkler would need to wet on the walls, how accurately it needs to distribute water evenly around a room, how it needs to respond to a fire and reach the corners of that room, being that it's a sidewall, it needs to reach the near corners and the far corners.
Right.
So all those things are inherent to the way it's tested, and then the sprinklers are designed to pass those tests. So I think when you think about a window sprinkler application, what we're trying to do with the window sprinkler is completely wet the surface of the glass, all the way from the top and the top corners, all the way down to the bottom corners. We want to make sure that we have a complete wetting of that entire surface. So a window sprinkler is designed to do exactly that. It's designed to put a complete sheet of water on the face of the glass. Mm-hmm. A sidewall sprinkler, you just would not, unless you exposed it to all the tests that a window sprinkler goes through, right? Do the ASTM E119 test to make sure it's equivalent to a 2-hour fire rating. The hose stream test, all the mechanicals. You would actually have to run a sidewall sprinkler through all of those test protocols in order to establish that it's valid. The simple fact is, maybe we can explain it like this. A sidewall sprinkler is designed to do something totally different than a window sprinkler.
I 100% agree. I'm just seeing things like that in the industry. Here being in Ontario, I'm not going to say it's an unregulated industry, but essentially guys are expected to do good work, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Right. And sometimes the fire department catches them. Sometimes the building department catches them. But there are situations where sprinklers are used outside of the listings, and it's important with manufacturers and everybody else to get the things out there that just because you think it'll work and you think it'll be fine, it may not be fine. Fire protection is not something to, well, you know what, it'll probably be okay. Close enough isn't close enough in fire protection.
No, yeah. If I could just add one more thing, and that's a great explanation, right? Because we just really need to all know as an industry that sprinklers are designed for their specific application. Just the same as you couldn't put a storage sprinkler in a residential application, you can't put a standard automatic sprinkler in a window sprinkler specific application. But yeah, I would just add one thing, Chris, in that we are our business development team, our training team is really in tune with specifying engineers and architects, and one of the things that we've tried to align the entire industry on isn't just simple. It's the nomenclature, and using the words specific application window sprinkler when you write your specification, or at the very least specific application sprinkler. A lot of times we run across specs that simply say install an automatic sprinkler to achieve a 2-hour fire rating, or something like that. Just a spec that isn't as well worded as it could be, which will then result in a contractor doing, nothing wrong by just reading the spec and doing what they're supposed to and putting in an automatic sprinkler. And that's where, sometimes we see people get tripped up and install something that's not suited for the application. So we're just trying to make everybody aware, there's a specific definition for a specific application window sprinkler. Here's what it means. It means it's been tested and evaluated by UL to perform equivalent to a 2-hour fire resistance rated wall. And then we've done some other things too, right? Just having a specific application listing gets you compliant with NFPA 13 and other fire codes, having our UL specific application listing. But to be utilized as part of a replacement or an equivalent to a 2-hour fire rated assembly, we've actually gone one step further. And we've gotten independent evaluation by the International Code Council Engineering Service, their evaluation service. And having a code equivalency is another thing that really helps people understand how this product fits, how our entire family of window sprinklers fits into the building code, right? And when and where it can be used as an equivalency to a 2-hour fire rated wall. Just the UL listing alone doesn't get that for you. That gets you a specific application sprinkler listing. But being able to have an independent evaluation by the ICC-ES gives authorities having jurisdiction and the engineers that are designing with the sprinkler a really hard and fast set of rules about how it can be designed and implemented into the design, and when and where and how it can replace a 2-hour fire resistance rated wall.
Right. Yeah. So these sprinklers will be available March 10th. What are we looking at general? This is kind of like, it depends on distribution and stuff like that, but what are we looking at for a general cost? Is it going to be similar to the window sprinkler that's released now, or is there an uptick on that as well?
There'll be a slight uptick, but we really try to keep it very comparable to what we're currently offering. Right. Like you said, the pricing, I think it's hard to describe in detail because we do sell a lot through distribution. And I just wouldn't be the right person to give a price. But yeah, I do know that we're very close to what we're selling the existing sprinkler for. Obviously, there'll be a bit of an uptick just because of the addition of the cover plate. Yep. There's some new technology in here that we had to account for, and it's a more complicated sprinkler than the exposed sprinkler. So we're trying not to pass too much of that along to the consumer. We know that these types of sprinklers aren't the cheapest, so we try to keep it pretty close to what we're currently selling them for.
Awesome, Bob. Is there anything else you want that you think we missed getting into the window sprinkler, the concealed sprinklers, things like that? Like, is there any other information that I just kind of rambled and asked you questions that I wanted to know? But is there anything that Tyco wants the consumers and the fitters out there to know about this product?
No, I don't. Not too much, Chris. I think we touch on a lot of things. The one thing I would say, is we have a long history of offering this type of product. Like I said, we've been offering a window sprinkler for 20 plus years. Our tech services department has a really, really good library of all the calls we've received, all the little things that engineers and architects deal with regards to trying to place a window sprinkler and use it in conjunction with their design. There's sometimes things that come up that are just one-offs, and we just really have a strong history of making good recommendations that are in line with the UL listing and our ICC report. But there's things that come up, different types of mullions and spacing off the mullions. People have a lot of questions about different types of glass. How do I protect an atrium? Do I have to protect both sides of the glass or only one side? We have a lot of that history here. We're happy to answer anybody's calls. All they have to do is call our tech services department or email techserve@jci.com. And we'll be happy to hold your hand through the process and really make it so that you have a good submittal that serves the purpose of achieving the 2-hour fire resistance rating.
Awesome. Bob, thanks for coming on the Fire Sprinkler podcast and, essentially helping me with the content as well as launching the product here. This is awesome. I appreciate the relationship that Johnson Controls and Tyco has developed with me, and we'll talk again soon. Again, thanks for coming on and thanks for sharing all this information. That is a lot of information about a new product, and thanks for sharing it with me.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you for having me today.
Hey everyone, this episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast is done. If you liked this episode, leave a review, comment, or hop over to my social media pages and let me know. Just search Fire Sprinkler Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't forget to hashtag Fire Sprinkler Podcast and anything you think I should know about or see. If you have any suggestions for future episodes of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast, email info@firesprinklerpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Take care.